Welcome back, beautiful people, to Alpha Mama's podcast, Get Obsessed with Success. We are up to episode 15, and today we are talking about wild money. That's right, and wild finances. So we have been on a little bit of a journey going into rewilding, stepping outside of our comfort zone and into a new space, and we're still looking at the same aspects in terms of finance. So first we look at how to build a vision, how to get there. So how do you create self-discipline to get where you want to get to? And then finally, finances. How do you acquire the resources you need or cultivate the correct mindset around abundance, so that you have the fuel to arrive at your destination or to go through the process of what we're doing. So, who is Alpha Mama? Alpha Mama brings you the lowdown on books that change your lives in the self-development space. We do the reading and research so you can sit back, listen, and take the steps to live your best life and move towards a more grounded life that reflects your authentic self. Growing up, I didn't feel like I had a lot of great guidance. The lack of guidance in my own life led me to make choices that accumulated in me hitting rock bottom by the age of 30. I felt like I had no one to turn to, and that is when I turned to books and researching how to live my best life. Fast forward almost a decade, and I have experienced total transformation. At Alpha Mama, we believe it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. The only thing that you need to succeed at your life is the belief that you can and the commitment to carrying through with backing yourself. A beautiful person once said to me, "Wherever I am is where I belong." And I believe that whatever it is you desire is calling you, and that desire is an invitation for you to step into your power and step towards your best life and your most authentic self. So today we are on the topic of finance. And in the last podcast, I did mention very briefly that we would be going over some of the key principles set out in Barefoot Investor by Scott Pape. So who is Scott Pape? I'm pretty sure Scott Pape is a financial planner. He's very popular. A lot of people would have heard of him, especially in Australia. He's a very popular Australian financial planner. He's in his early 40s. And basically, he wrote a book called The Barefoot Investor and The Barefoot Investor for Families. And it's all about how to create wealth generations. So looking at sources of income, looking at how to save, so how to make more money, how to invest wisely, how to pay off debt quicker, and how to put a plan in place that will help you pay off your debt at a faster rate. And the other key things that I really love about Scott is he kind of reminds us to do all the things that we talk about in this podcast. So create a vision for your life. Know what it is that you want to achieve. Know where you're going. Know what it is you want, because once you know what that is, you can then cut out all the things that aren't meaningful for you. And when we think about that from a financial perspective, what you're doing is you're only investing in very meaningful, high value things in your life, and you're cutting out all the things in your life that are not important and do not matter to you. And without that clear understanding of who you are, what you want, where you're going, and why you're doing what you're doing, it's very easy to get distracted by advertisements or fads or whatever, and then have your attention sort of drawn left, right, and centre, and spend recklessly almost on a number of different sort of products, and without any real meaning to it or final outcome. So having a clear vision, having a clear plan of how to get there, and then basically cutting out or culling all of the things that are not relevant to that vision and to that plan, helps you get to where you want to get. So I mean, really, I would recommend reading Scott Pape's book, because it's really a rewarding book and quite an enjoyable book to read. So, you know, looking at not only cultivating income from your active job, so things like, can I get a pay rise? Can I increase my revenue? How do I increase my revenue? Looking at other options like passive income. So do you have a house? Do you go away for holidays and you have a house that you could rent out on Airbnb or something like that? What about car sharing? You know, could you do a share your ride and cut petrol costs and cut registration costs and make a little bit of extra money? Maybe you could Uber on your weekends if you enjoy driving. He also talks about stuff like, so things that no longer fit into your vision, have you looked after them? Can you sell your assets on the market and make some sort of savings from them? If you're attached to something like, say, a snowboard or a surfboard that you don't use very often, is it possible to hire those out? Could you have a local, you know, hire out to people in your community? There are so many options and avenues to explore in terms of making money. And I think the key aspect of that is that once you start getting into the mindset of wealth creation, which is that first phase, wealth creation, then you start opening yourself up to opportunities based on whatever your personal interest areas are. So that can be really quite a positive starting point. The other thing that Scott sort of talks about a lot in his book is creating, so in terms of like debt reduction, so basically he follows a set and forget plan where you kind of set up bank accounts. So one will be, you do a budget obviously, and then you set up bank accounts. So what's my budget for food and my living expenses each week? What's my budget for, you know, savings, long-term savings? So he's got like a 6-month, you know, savings account, and then like a crisis account, and then you know, your debt reduction account sort of thing, and then kind of building these like money trees, or slowly building them. And so you're just spending from one account only, and then you're using the other accounts as savings accounts. So to really sort of understand, I'll put a link to his website on the blog this week, and that will sort of guide you towards some of his strategies and his book, which you might find really interesting to read. And then, so debt reduction, budgeting, wealth creation, and then obviously the real money card is investing. So investing in shares, for example, I think it's, you know, hands down recognised that shares sort of do an average return of somewhere between 7 to 10% on average over a 10-year period. You know, diversifying your investments, so looking at, you know, property and other sort of business investments that you could be making. So that's all really cool. And then he does also do quite a bit of stuff on helping your children with their savings and stuff like that. So look, I think he's a great starting point, and I've met so many people in my own personal life who follow the Barefoot Investors strategy, and it's a highly successful strategy. They have everyone who follows it to the core have saved heaps of money. They've paid off debts. They've really it's made a huge difference to people's lives, which is just mind-blowing. So just the sort of legacy that Scott Pape has with the work that he's done is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. So that's The Barefoot Investor, and that was published in 2016. And the other book that I am going to talk about today, which is a little bit more left of field, so it's called it's by Luna Jaffe, and it's called Wild Money, A Creative Journey to Financial Wisdom. And Luna Jaffe is a financial planner. She runs her own financial planning business in New York, I believe, or somewhere in the US. And basically, she's got a really interesting background. So she started off being I think she did like visual arts or art therapy or something, and then ended up doing sort of psychotherapy, and is a qualified psychologist. And then sort of later in her life, she was approached by someone who said, I think you're going to be an amazing, she already had a bit of fame, I think you'll be an amazing financial planner. So she took this job as a financial planner and got all the qualifications, and worked for some top tier financial planning business firm in the US. And she takes a really sort of left of field approach to helping people, in particular women, sort of break free of their subconscious programming around their relationship with money, and then move into a space where they can not only educate themselves about finances, but then thrive, in terms of their money management and in terms of their relationship with their money. And I really love the gentle and nurturing way that her book talks about money. So looking at how our relationship with everyone else in our lives and with everything in our lives is really just a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. And so whatever your relationship is with money is really just a reflection of your relationship with yourself. Now, she has this sort of strategy, I guess, trademark that she talks about in her book, and it's the pillars. So she uses the Wild Money Mandala. So in Sanskrit, mandala means sacred space, and it means both, it's a circle and center. So when she talks about it in the book, what she's referring to is having a kind of holistic approach to finances and looking at both the inward relationship as well as the external relationship with finances. And so a lot of the exercises that she goes through in the book focus around your internal dialogue or your internal visualization of what your relationship with money looks like in different areas of your life. And so in her model, she's got a 6-petal mandala, and I'm going to take you through the 6 categories that she covers. So they're called the 6 mandates of wild money in the Wild Money Mandala by Luna Jaffe. And so number 1 is receive money with grace. So asking yourself, how does it feel? how does it impact the flow of money in your life? The second mandate is spend with intention. So recognizing that sometimes it's hard to feel connection with money, and by building a connection with the precious resources in your life, and building an emotional connection with what underlies important spending decisions, you will start to see a radical shift in the way that you perceive your relationship with money, is what she's suggesting. And also start recognizing triggers for unconscious spending and begin to replace old habits with new sustainable actions. So the whole idea of spend with intention is to increase your wealth, protect it, and nurture your resources effectively in your life. So mandate number 3 is nurture your nest egg. Take stock of your past assumptions about saving and investing so that you can create ways to keep your money tucked away, warm and growing. So I just really love the kind of emotive connection she makes with it. And look, at the end of the day, when it comes to financial abundance or creating an abundance mindset, it's really the outcome's the same. So you're trying to create wealth creation, abundance in your life, you're growing and investing, and this is a process. It's an ongoing process that we all have to travel through constantly through our lives. And the way that she humanizes that process and turns it into a relationship of self-love, self-respect and connection, I think is really beautiful. And it's interesting because you don't really see a lot of that in the corporate financial world. So I just think, hats off to her for doing that. So mandate number 4, grow your gold. And I like this garden analogy. No one would plant a garden with only one crop because it's risky and not to mention boring. Yet doing that is exactly what many people do in their portfolio. Using language and metaphors from the garden, this mandate invites you to shift out of fear and into curiosity when it comes to investing. So you'll learn investment concepts in a whole new visual way, as well as how to plant and prune your investments. I like that. So very interesting approach. And it's something that Buddhist philosophy talks about a lot, is weeding your garden. So weeding out, if we let the weeds of our mind grow, they will overtake all the other plants in the garden. But by weeding out the plants that we don't want there and pruning the trees, we then find great fruiting. And I think there is a lot that we can take from nature in that sense. Like when you think of a tree or a fruit tree, how does the tree thrive? The tree thrives when you prune it back. You prune it back and then it will fruit forever, and it will be heavily laden with fruit. And so while we grow our assets and we grow our abundance, it's important as well to remember to do that heavy pruning and cut and cull back to your bare minimum, so that you're allowing space for the fruit of your labour to come into fruition and grow. So it's very nice. So mandate 5, protect your wild places. This mandate is about knowing how to protect and plan for financial crisis, so that all is not lost when faced with illness, death or disability. And it's about protecting your family and understanding when and how to use insurance products and estate planning. So that's a really great aspect to contemplate. And I believe Barefoot Investor also talks about, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, but I believe that it also talks about insurance. But that's right, insurance and estate planning. So putting scaffolding in place in your life to make sure that when a storm blows through, that there are actually adequate protections in there to protect you, to protect the people that you love. That's one thing that is so important when it comes to estate planning is, we all care about and we all love the people in our lives, and we want to protect our families, and we want to make sure our children are safe and taken care of into the future. And, you know, part of being responsibly caring and responsibly loving as a parent, or, you know, as a homeowner, for example, if you're a parent with a home and you've got a mortgage, is you need to have insurance over those things, because if something were to happen to you, you know, knowing that you've put a structure in place so that your loved ones will be taken care of, so that your home will be paid off in the event of your untimely death, so that your children are not going to be impoverished or kicked out of their home before they need to be, when they're already going through such severe grief, you know, of losing a parent, or, you know, having a permanently disabled parent or anything like that. So if you don't have insurance over those things, well, we highly recommend go out and get it there. And that's not formal advice, we're just saying. So mandate number 6, give with guts. Analyse your patterns of giving and underlying emotions with the impact of your giving or lack thereof, and it encourages you to practice sustainable giving practices and gives you permission to take care of yourself while also being of service in the world. And I think this one, that mandate, is particularly relevant, especially to a lot of women. You know, where is the highest area of unpaid labour? It's the female market. You know, women do so much unpaid work, and it's not recognised that actually our society and our economy runs thanks to not only people who get paid for the work that they do, but also people who do not get paid for the work they do. Those people are also very much holding the glue of our society together. They're the ones out there, you know, doing the soup kitchens, who are looking after the elderly parents, that instead of burdening the public health system with, you know, more than it can possibly deal with. So there's a lot to be said about that. But there's a beautiful saying about, and you hear it all the time, and we think about it in terms of first aid and in terms of emergency management. You know, doctors ABC, danger. You need to make sure you're safe first. You need to make sure you're looked after first. You need to make sure that you have enough oxygen in your lungs so that you're breathing before you're able to put the mask on the other person, before you're able to help someone else. You know, same thing with when you help someone drowning. You know, you don't just jump in and start drowning yourself and then you've got 2 people drowning. In order to be giving to other people, you need to make sure that you're giving enough to yourself first, and that you're also, you know, fully fulfilled within yourself and giving within a healthy, sustainable way. And so that's something that's very relevant. Now, what is different and what is cool about Luna Jaffrey's book, which I highly recommend you checking out. So I listened to it as an audio book. It was about 5 hours long. And the really cool thing about it is that she goes through a lot of money exercises, and it's sort of like art therapy. So recognizing that we all have a story that we tell ourselves around money. So she actually encourages a lot of these kind of exercises and questionnaires around drawing pictures around your relationship with giving, your relationship with savings, your relationships with receiving money, and then you actually telling the story of what the picture says. So, okay, you know, maybe you feel guilty about receiving money when you feel like you didn't earn it if you had an inheritance, or maybe you don't feel like you deserve more, maybe you just want enough. This is something that she mentioned which I really liked in the book. She talks about having enough versus being plentiful, and how a lot of us have this mindset around this idea of I just need to have enough. I need to be enough. I am enough. And the thing is, she invites you and challenges you to not be enough, but to be abundant, to be plentiful, to have more than enough, to have plenty. And looking at what does plenty look like for you. So a really interesting book, and starting with your current, drawing a picture of your current relationship with money, and then listening to yourself or telling the story of what the picture is telling, and then opening yourself up to being challenged, and open to breaking those ideas and recognizing where they come from, and then educating yourself and developing the tools and resources to shift that narrative into a powerful new narrative that leads you to a pathway of great success in your life. So on that note, I am going to end the podcast there. I'll have the links to the books in the blog this week, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. We will be back to talking about how to create a vision. So stay tuned, keep it real, and catch you then. Over and out.